Josh won't be on the call today. Looks like Diane got in. So we do have a quorum. Kim, would you like to be a timekeeper tonight?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, great. So Kim will be the timekeeper.
It's a tall order tonight.
I beg your pardon?
It's a tall order tonight.
Yeah.
We'll figure it
Public
out.
appearance for non-agenda items. Item 2 on the agenda. Is anyone in the chamber, Scott? I don't see anybody.
No, sir, there are not.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to approval of the minutes. The draft meeting minutes from September 12th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move approval.
Second,
I second.
discussion?
I have several things. Once again, and I apologize for several things, but I think it would be helpful if we could see the minutes before they're posted, but certainly if not then, when they're posted. But under 4B, I think that there should be some elaboration of why the expenditures were below budget. And if I remember correctly, Ben, you said it was because there was a delayed purchase of a shredder or something. I think that should be included. And also why the revenue was more than budget. I don't remember what your explanation was for that, but
Sure.
I thought I'd like to see that added. And I think what I asked was what the preferred target fund balance was. I think that that sentence just needs to be tweaked. It didn't
Okay.
make sense to me. Okay.
Yep, got it.
Okay. Then under 4C, I don't think that I said that people were cited for putting yard waste out. I think that they received some kind of a notice from Bill, but
Gotcha.
I don't know that he actually ticketed anybody.
Okay, maybe just a warning letter, got it.
Yeah, or just a reminder, or yeah, something like that. Under 4E, I don't think I recommended that you write an article. I just suggested that it would be a good idea to write an article, and I asked you if you wanted to write it. I don't want it to look like I told you
Sure.
to do that. Okay.
Sure.
And then in the second paragraph, I think the word "come" should be "some." Let me see. That's under 4E. Let me see if I can get that back. Are you following me so far?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm the person that mentioned that decals last longer than paint on curbs. I actually don't think I knew that. So somebody else may have mentioned that, and if they'd like to take credit for that, that's great, but I don't think that it was me. I might have speculated that, but I don't know that. Under 5A, the STAR would accept more article submissions above RCC's commitment. I'd prefer that wording.
Sure, okay.
And then where it says it's November or December, not November and December. Okay.
Got it.
7A, it should be were, not was. And I think problems, not issue. We've got a plural verb and a singular noun following it. So either issues or problems, whichever one you want to use. And then 7B, I noted that stormwater is under the purview of RCC, and as such, stormwater projects should be coming to RCC. That's a little bit different than how that's written.
Okay.
And the last paragraph, I think we should have the date rather than use upcoming Wednesday, the date of an event. Okay. That's what I have under the minutes.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, so noted. All in favor of approving the minutes with the, well, I guess Ben, you'll make those changes?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye, all opposed? Not opposed? Minutes approved. Next on the agenda, item under new before I do business, the Pittsburgh recycling drop-off site compliance improvement. We kind of discussed this at our last meeting, and hopefully, Ben, you can give us an update on what you found out.
Yeah, so I guess I've got a couple things I wanted to talk about here on this agenda
Okay.
item. One, just kind of speaking with the street supervisor and other public works employees, they had noted that it seems to be improving as far as the amount of illegal dumping that's been going on. Looking back through the records, it looked like in 2017 in particular, there were quite a few tickets issued. I mean, on the order of 30, 40, 50 tickets just in that year, which is well above any other year. And they seem to think that the illegal dumping had been less so kind of following that. However, I think what we've seen from some of the cardboard totals seems to support that. While maybe there's less illegal dumping, there may be still issues with use from non-residents and contractors. And that was one thing that one of the public works staff members noted, that they feel that there are kind of smaller mom and pop type contractors that maybe are using this facility. So I think what I would like to do is basically kind of get a random sample or survey across different times of the day, different days of the week, maybe just having someone outside the gate staffing it for an hour, asking folks where they're coming from, getting identification, and then maybe it's a couple months of doing that. Not a big time commitment. I think we'd have to probably decide, okay, well, how many residents is going to be a big enough sample size. Maybe it's 500 cars or something. But then once we kind of have a random sample, we could get a better look into the percentage of people using that's that are Fitchburg residents versus non-Fitchburg residents. Because right now it's hard to say exactly how big of an issue it is. I just don't know that we have any data to support it one way or not. So I think just kind of getting a survey or a sample of who's using it would be the first step. And then just looking into some other programs or what other municipalities have been doing. For example, the city of Milwaukee actually has a program. It's an incentive program for people. They can report illegal dumping activities, and if they send in the necessary information, plate number, pictures, times, whatever, they would be eligible to receive. And actually, I think it was up to $1,000. But that was just one thought, some kind of an incentive program. I think there are some changes to the ordinance that could be made, both with the forfeiture schedule. I don't think that's been updated. I think it could be beneficial if we're seeing that there are contractors coming in here and using it. We could, change it, have a separate forfeiture schedule for contractors, so they'd be paying more than just, the $100 whatever it is, and maybe that would deter them more. And then also just updating the forfeiture schedule and the authority for citing individuals. So I think right now it just says in the ordinance, the director of public works or his or her designee. I think that could be opened up a little bit further. I mean, I'm not around there. The director of public works really isn't around there. I think, really any public works staff or any police officer should also have that authority to issue citations for illegal dumping. I've seen that looking through other ordinances as well. That seemed to be pretty common. And those were kind of just the first few ideas that came to my mind. Another idea was that seemed to be used successfully in other communities, if we do see that there are actually a lot of non-residents, maybe there's some kind of a sticker they could get for whatever, $50 that would allow them to use that site as some kind of a non-resident sticker or something, of that sort. So those were kind of the major, I think, ideas or thoughts that I had so far based on what we've seen and some of the increasing tonnages. So I'd be curious to kind of get some of your thoughts on some other types of ways we could help increase compliance, or just any other kind of insight you may have.
Say, Ben, I have an idea. Perhaps you could just move your desk out there.
That might work.
No, seriously, if you do spot checking, I think that's a good idea, but how are they going to identify whether the person is Fitchburg resident or not? Will they ask for their driver's license, or yes,
that would be my plan.
And they can do that? I mean, legally that's okay to do?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like it would be. I guess I'd have to check with, is Ron talking right now?
I guess if you had a police officer do it, it would be okay. But, their time is limited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's any harm in asking.
Yeah.
If they don't want.
You could ask them if it's okay that somebody from Public Works asks for a driver's license. I just don't know how much of that is protected. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's, I think we could ask for it, but we can't demand it. Like a police officer, if they don't want to give it to us, fine. I guess there's nothing we can do at that point.
Well, they have to turn around and leave, right?
Well, unless they say that they are a resident, they just want to give us they just don't want to provide their identification. At that point, we just write the license number and look them up later because they're probably not a resident.
And you said that right now, the ordinance allows the Public Works Director or you or your designee to issue citations. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
well,
what
anybody could be your designee. So that, I don't think that necessarily needs to be changed.
Okay.
Right? Because you could have, I realize that she won't do this, but I'm just throw this out. You could have Tracy do a spot check. And since she's your designee, she could also issue citations, although I doubt that anybody's going to, if you check for their residency and they don't have it, they don't get to dump. So there won't be any citation to be issued. Right. How does Milwaukee determine whether somebody's a resident or not? That program that you mentioned to report illegal dumping, when I'm at the drop-off site, how do I know if somebody else is from Fitchburg or not?
Right. And I didn't look too much into that program. I think that program wasn't as concerned with who was doing the dumping, the illegal dumping, but more of just that it was occurring. So it wasn't a resident, non-resident issue in that case.
Okay.
Yeah, it would, because you're right. It would be, nearly impossible unless you knew them, that they lived in Sun Prairie or something. But yeah, it wouldn't really be feasible for other residents to be, doing that with non-residents. They're just not going to know.
I like your spot check idea. And once we find out what's going on, because we've dealt with this when we talked about polystyrene recycling and how much polystyrene is coming in there. We've dealt with the problem of other communities possibly using that site. And I guess it would be good to find out how extensive that is.
Yes, and I think it could be pretty extensive, because if you look at the tickets that have been written over the past 5 years, it's got their address right on the letter. There's a lot of, Oregon, Sun Prairie, really all over Dane County. So, and these are people that weren't getting tickets because they were non-residents. They were getting tickets for, dropping something off that they weren't supposed to. They just happened to be non-residents as well.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll mention is the gates that are installed now. So it's open during daylight hours only. And I think in the past I've maybe said it's open 24/7. Well, that's not the case, but it's being used 24/7. There's people that'll drop stuff off at 3 o'clock in the morning. So now that we do have gates, you know, we can close that. And
Who will be doing that? Who will close it when it's not daylight?
well, that's right. It would have to be maybe Mark or whoever's the last to leave at the Public Works
The
facility.
maintenance garage?
Yeah, I think that's unless we could have them, you know, automatically close on a timer or something. I don't know if that's something that's.
That'd probably be better because I think on the weekends it gets pretty busy right up until dusk.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh
Yeah.
no,
Go ahead, Gabriella.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts for me. So, first of all, in terms of like getting the police officers to do it, they are very, I don't think they'll have time to do it. I guess that's all I'll say. They have very few officers on patrol at any given time. So I think that would be a very, very big ask. I'm not sure it's worth it.
Yeah.
But the other thing question I have, so we have the license plate camera, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're recording every license plate that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
So it just occurs to me that, so if you are doing a check where someone's standing out there grabbing IDs, I feel like you're not going to get a representative sample because people are just going to drive past because they're like, oh, they're checking IDs. I'm not going to come right now. Because they probably know that they're not supposed to go to the Fitchburg site. I wonder
unless we're not checking IDs right at the gate, so they're already have driven in before they know that they're going to get their ID checked. I think I check IDs by the yard waste for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So we hide the checks so that people don't know and they're coming in. But if we're just trying to get data about how many people are coming from out of town, couldn't we just do an analysis of the license plates? Or do you think it's actually easier to have somebody stand out there for 8 hours over, you know, many weeks, certain days over many weeks?
Yeah, well, it would be pretty nice if the license plate reader could differentiate between residents and non-residents, but it's, you know, we don't have a way really to. I talked with IT. It sounds like someone would have to input all the license plates of Fitchburg residents into this system, so it could differentiate between non-resident and resident. So that, I mean, it's not with the current recollect software we have, it sounds like it would not be feasible. And I don't know, I really think that just getting a sample, I think we could get a pretty good sample with a pretty limited amount of time, just due to the fact that it's so crowded. I mean, you could stand there for an hour and there'll probably be a couple dozen cars in and out. And I think if you did it in such a way where it's 2 hours at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, and then 2 hours at, you know, kind of have it broken up randomly, weekends, whatever, just enough cars.
Is there any reason why? So do we have a way to look up the license plates? Because I wonder if it's just the same amount of time just to do an analysis of the license plates, and then potentially you have a bigger sample size over the course of a week, say. And then because you're not flagging anybody, giving any indication that, you know, it really is truly hidden, right? Because everybody that comes through gets their license plate recorded.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just feel like we spend the time to do the analysis that we already have versus putting people out there. I don't know. It just feels like it's a really difficult statistical sample to get. You know what I mean? Like it's really difficult to determine that. I'll stop there.
Ben, can we get the DMV to provide a list of license plates that are for Fitchburg residents? Would that be easier? And then you could bounce the screen off of that rather than input, you know, trying to get everybody in Fitchburg to give their license plate number?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to check with the DMV and see if that's something that they could provide. Yeah, there's got to be a way, right? I mean, these cars are registered in the city. I guess it's just if I can access that information and you know, trust that it's up to date. And
well, even if it isn't, most of it would be.
Sure. If 90% of it is.
And that's all. We're just trying to get an idea of if I'm pretty sure we do have a problem, but the extent of the problem. And even though you may not have a representative sample, if you have somebody stand out there for an hour, you know, a couple 4 or 5 times on different days, it still gives us a better idea of the extent of the problem.
Right.
I have a thought, an idea. You know how they used to have those cameras that take pictures of your car when people run a red light or something like that? Is that along with that, we would have one of those cameras there. Every time somebody pulled up, the light would flash and show that their picture was taken. At the same time with that sign, there would be a strong warning sign saying, look, for Fitchburg residents only, your license plate is being copied. If you are a non-Fitchburg resident, you will be cited $100. And we would have to change our ordinance to talk about charging. I'll guarantee you that people will stop and once they see that flash of that light of their license plate, they'll back away. So
I mean,
Very well may scare away Pittsburgh
we don't have
residents
to know
too.
anything. It's just kind of like those false security sign people stick in their yards to say, you know, the house is some type of surveillance when it's actually not. I mean, somebody may catch on after a while, but I mean,
I think we'd have to look into the cost, and you'd probably scare away some Fitchburg residents too who don't want to be photographed.
yeah. Well, they're being photographed anyways. They go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are
no
being
difference.
photographed now.
You're under audio visual, so surveillance.
I guess where I'm at is I remember last year when I guess it was 2 years ago. Anyway, when we put in the budget to add, it was like $15,000 to buy the license plate camera. And I remember asking at the time, is there any way for us to actually ticket people? And the answer at the time was yes. And now we have this $15,000 camera that essentially we're not doing anything with, right? Because we have no mechanism by which to actually cite people, or is it?
We do use the camera. Everyone that gets cited for illegal dumping. So again, not with the Fitchburg non-Fitchburg differential. They're all getting picked up by the camera, and that's kind of the use of the camera right now.
Yeah, the illegal dumping is the.
So where's the illegal dumping happening?
By that, I just mean disposal of items that aren't accepted at the drop-off site.
I mean, you can tell when someone's doing that.
Oh yeah, yep. Yep. So usually, I think what'll happen is someone will see, you know, a mattress or whatever laying out, and then go back, see who put it there, and get the citation out. Yeah.
Along those lines, and I brought this up before, the money that comes from those citations for illegal dumping or dumping in non-resident, those really need to be funneled back to the fund that's being used to pay for Pelletieri to come and empty all of this stuff. I don't know how you accomplish that, but it's just not a good match right now.
Right, and it would make sense for the money, you know, the forfeiture to be paying for the facility. That just seems to be logical. I guess I can't really confirm where all those forfeitures go, how they're used.
I can tell you that. So the fines and forfeitures is a single revenue stream in the budget, and that typically goes straight into the general fund that's distributed, you know, like any, you know, property tax acceptance. So it's actually not going, because recycling utility is separate. It's not going into that. They're completely separate.
Gotcha.
Okay, it's 7:07.
Okay. Any other discussion on this topic? I mean, it was a good discussion, some good ideas. So I guess, Ben, what would be an action item then for the fall? Chris?
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, I know we've been talking a lot about the enforcement side and ideas for that. But, you know, you guys also had that video that you made just a couple of years back that I still think is relevant. So, you know, continuing to circulate that, make sure that that's visible on the website, potentially highlighting that on, you know, especially like in these months, you know, like October, November, when, you know, people are taking a lot of things out to the site, the drop-off site. I think a social media campaign around that and just making it visible, putting it into our newsletter, you know, just making that video continue to have that do some legwork for us on outreach on how to use the drop-off site would be a good idea.
Okay, good idea, Chris.
Great.
So Ben, is there any follow-up on this action then on this item?
Yeah, I think the follow-up is, I mean, I still would either like to do you know, a sample of non-resident actually at the site, or again check in, see if we can get plates from the DMV, and if there's a way to use that
Okay.
with the Recollect software to see if we can do a survey that way. So I think those would probably be the two action items.
Okay. And so our ordinances allow us to cite someone if they're, I guess, illegally dumping, or they're a non-resident.
Yes, it does. Yep.
All right. Any else? Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's move on to agenda item 4B, draft stormwater utility vegetation management RFP.
All right.
And I'll let you go ahead and talk about it, Ben. I got a few comments on it.
Sure. Perfect. That's what I was hoping for. I'll share my screen here
Okay.
so everyone can see it. So, and I guess I'm not sure, but I think 2 years ago, I don't know, it might have been 2021, Field and Stream completed it kind of just an inventory of all the stormwater facilities that are operated by the stormwater utility. And that inventory basically was just kind of a high level overview of each of the existing stormwater facilities, as far as, you know, what the current existing conditions are with respect to, you know, natives versus non-natives, and then a plan for mowing, treatment, burning going forward. So based off of that, I think Claudia kind of put together a list of facilities that were considered priority facilities for native vegetation establishment. And that was based off of, you know, mostly how visible these facilities were. So, you know, the ones along bike paths and near schools where they're going to get a lot of visibility. So essentially we kind of came up with this list here. It's more extensive than the past vegetation management plans we've had. There is more money in the operating budget this year. But I just wanted to present this to get everyone's thoughts on maybe there are some other facilities that might provide, I guess, some benefit with a more stringent vegetation management plan. I just kind of would be looking to your thoughts on that in general. So this contract, I guess a little background, it would be a 3-year contract, essentially trying to burn each of the facilities once every 3 years, at least until there's some more natives established in the areas. And then on the non-burn years, it would just be spot spraying and mowing essentially for the service to be provided.
Ben, wasn't this work a similar type of work awarded a couple of years ago? Because I remember Claudia asked me to review the proposals that came in. And I forgot who got selected for the work because they were talked about the burns and the vegetation management.
Yep. So there was an RFP out in 21, and you can see that there's a few of these facilities that have no management for 2 years, or this one has no management for 1 year. These ones that don't have management in 23 and 24 are currently under a contract through 24. So we want to keep them on the contract, and then kind of going forward, just having the same facilities receiving maintenance year after year after year, and hopefully You know, once we see more establishment, the maintenance is pretty minimal. Maybe it's just a spot spray or something, or a controlled burn on a less frequent basis. So yeah, definitely expanding the number of facilities that we want to have receiving some professional services here.
Okay.
And on that contract, when we discussed this, I'm fairly certain when we discussed this with Claudia, we talked about the acceptable herbicides that could be used. Did you look at the wording in the earlier contracts? Was there something about that? Because if this mirrors that wording, I mean, basically they could use any herbicide they want, and we're talking about doing that right around a water area. That doesn't, I'm not sure that we want, not that any herbicide is great, but some are worse than others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And right near a waterway, I think you really have to have a DNR permit or have some sort of a certification to be applying certain herbicides in your waterways. Ron, maybe you can, I don't know if you can confirm that, but that's my understanding.
Well, some of these are not considered waterways, right? Because they're just retention ponds?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that same rule would, I think, apply just because eventually they dump into a waterway. I think it's just any water, really, from what I understand. But yes, that's something I don't know if I addressed here.
I didn't see it. It just looked like it was sort of, forgive the expression, open season.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would definitely welcome some suggestions on that front.
Could you go back and see what wording was used in the earlier contracts? Because I know we discussed this, and I hope that there was something included talking about like the priorities that we would have each of these. You know, you give people the options for manual pulling or herbicides, or I thought we prioritized that.
Yeah, I don't know if you have the previous RFP that was written for that, the people that, or the firm that owns the contract now. If you could go back and look at that, that might be helpful. I mean, because I think we went over with it either early 2021 or late 2020.
Let's see.
If you're looking for the section in the in this RFP, it's under weed management. It says mechanical removal, repeated selective or non-selective herbicide applications. That's under the first bullet. Page is 14 or 5, I guess. 5, one page back.
All right. So this is the one that I've got. Are you seeing it on the screen right now? Is it?
No, I'm seeing page 6.
Prescribed burns, follow-up weed management.
Yeah, I think all my seen is the one that the new one.
Okay. Well, I've got up the old one from 2000. I guess you can't see it, but it says mechanical removal, repeated selective and or non-selective herbicide applications. And that's about all it says.
So that's the same wording that we have now.
Yeah, I don't think there was any, at least not for this one. This was 2000.
That was 2000?
The one I'm reading right now is from 2000. Yeah.
The year
Oh.
2000?
Yeah.
I think there have been contracts much more recently than
Yeah.
that.
Oh, 2020. I'm reading and talking at the same time. That's not a good combo for me.
Good thing you're not chewing gum.
Yeah.
Well, can we discuss that then, or at least can you include some priority of, I mean, I realize some of these things can only be addressed with some nasty herbicides, but some of them could be addressed by, what was the term that you used? Mechanical removal?
Mm-hmm. Weed pulling, yeah. I was just talking to Field and Stream, and I know they were using Plateau as one of the herbicides, but this was out in kind of the Harlan Hills area, not really near the pond. That was just, I know they're using that one out there, but I'd be definitely open to any of your guys' thoughts or recommendations as far as how to word something with herbicides. Not really my area of expertise there.
Yeah, it's not mine either.
Didn't we have the vegetation management plan? I thought that we had kind of all these prioritized, and maybe that was just a stormwater management.
Oh, maybe what, that's Chris, where it was.
There was something in the stormwater utility, utility management plan that does address vegetation. That's maybe where that was.
Ben, have you had a competition with Anna Healy, the forester naturalist, about this?
No, I haven't shown her this yet, but I'll give her a look at it.
Yeah, she might have some knowledge.
I know that we've talked about this. That's a good point, Chris. Maybe that's where we talked about it. I know we talked about
but I think it was really impressive, like how it was all, we had everything categorized, and I think we went through it as a group and talked about all the priorities. And, from what I recall, it was really well prepared and had a really good management plan pulled together for all of these ponds. And if you can find that and use similar terminology and make sure that we're consistent with that, that would be a good check on this RFP as well.
Perfect. And yeah, I do have that. That's what this was largely based off of, as far as how, which individual facilities were selected.
Yeah, it seemed like that's where it was maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some language in there I can add.
Van, my comments. Do you have something, Diane?
Yeah, one other thing, when you're talking about burn control, because I know we also talked about this, and actually, I don't know, Ron, if you brought this up or if Rick Eilerson brought this up, but it has to do with the nesting. I think the nesting season. This was burn control burns into June, and you can help me out with this, Ron, because you're much more knowledgeable about this stuff. But isn't that too late?
Yeah, I mean, typically the birds are what they should be done like in late March or sometimes in early April before the ground nesting birds come in. I think we talked about that with reference to mowing, to be careful. But even with prairie burns, you have to identify the right time, right conditions and things like that. But as it relates to wildlife, you want to try to get it done as early as possible before the ground nesting birds move in.
So maybe that should be more like, middle of April, beginning.
First of the mid part of April.
As the latest, kind of.
Yeah. Because I mean, potentially still could have snow up into mid-April.
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
I noticed Dane County tends to burn a lot of their parks in early April. So that would be something to look into.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Diane. Again, one of my main concern is actually if you go to page, where it talks about traffic control, page 18 of the document.
Page 18 of our packet.
Yeah, page 18 of the packet. Right there.
Okay.
So the first sentence, first couple of sentences talk about traffic control. And all of a sudden you start talking about insurance. I think that whole section, I kept thinking, does this apply to traffic control? Or is this just in general for the whole contract? And it seems like where it says a contract shall purchase and maintain liability, comprehensive liability, that all needs to go under the insurance requirements instead of under traffic control.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Yep, I agree.
And
I'm assuming the city attorney looks at this and.
yeah, that was my next question, because I really don't, to me, there's like no indemnification. I mean, if it's a prairie burn, you know, I look at the general liability and limits. You could one house could be $500,000 if that fire got out of control. I mean, and what kind of insurance do these companies have when it comes to a prairie burn? How are they held liable for that? If some reason something happened, I mean, we have to make sure they're certified people that are certified to do that. But if something, you know, a fire escapes and gets out of control and can quickly burn through a neighborhood and burn up, you know, multiple dwellings and potential loss of lives, is it going to come back and haunt the city?
Well, that's something that we'll want to add into the RFP, but I'm sure that's
Well, I mean, make sure that they carry that insurance
itself. Right.
I mean, this is not just like your general, I don't know, engineering type job. I mean, they all have different insurance requirements, but to me, having a fire burn next to, you know, any parks or any subdivisions and things like that, it's a more dangerous condition.
Sure.
So Ron, you're suggesting they increase those.
Well, I think what you might want to do is talk with the attorney about this.
Okay.
There is no, I don't see any indemnification in here.
Well, yeah, I think that would be in the contract. It's.
Well, I looked at the contract, which is what, 1 page?
Yeah, pretty short.
Yeah. I mean, my gosh, for $80,000 job, I've had signed contracts that were, you know, multiple pages.
Yeah, I mean, we could even probably have bonding, performance.
I mean, Chris is probably familiar with all this too, with on contracting, and it's like our attorneys always, you know, I guess create issues for us when we're trying to get a contract signed when you're in the consulting business. And in this case, you know, there's not much here.
Right.
No indemnification for the city or anything.
Yeah, it almost looks like there's a couple pages missing.
Yeah, I mean,
attorneys get paid by the word, so they can add a few pages on this.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's probably, you know, some other language somewhere in other contracts.
Yeah, this just isn't our regular city contract.
Yeah.
So and honestly, I wasn't really planning on talking too much about the legalese necessarily as much as just kind of the scope.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the years in the draft contract that you've attached, I think are wrong. Because it's got 2021
to 24. Yeah, it should be 23 to 25.
It's page 23 in the packet.
All right. Well, it's 20, 23, 24, 25 is what it is. I'll clean up the dates and stuff, but
yeah, that's an Article 1 and Article 2. They got 2021 in there.
You can tell I just took the one from last year and
We're about 20 minutes behind.
All right.
I just want to say one more thing for Ben. Just a note that there's $100,000 in the vegetation management section of the stormwater utility budget. The history of that, there used to be $60,000 a year. I bumped that up with the 2021 budget, and that rise has been maintained. I really don't know how much of that budget we've used in the last couple of years before you started, but my guess is that there's some left. There will be some left over for this budget year. So I don't know if it'd be worthwhile to roll any of that over so we can get some additional done next year, but just something I wanted to put a bug in your ear about it so you can think about it.
Yes, absolutely. And this year in 2022, certainly not all of that money was used, but this I'm estimating is about $80,000 between all these a year, based on what Field and Stream had provided a couple of years ago and tacking on some extra costs. So yeah, I think that's kind of the idea, is we have, these set same, 20, 30, how many it is, that just receive service year after year after year on a rotating 30-year contract. It just seems like it's kind of been, maybe these ponds, these 3 years, and then a couple years off, and then some other ponds a few other years. I think it'd just be easier. And
I also did want to check with you. So the budget, like I saw that this was in the plan, in the public works section of the budget, this specific RFP was mentioned. And I assume that the vegetation management budget reflects that cost of what we're putting out for bid. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then when you get this updated, I'd be more than happy to help go over it with you.
Yeah, and I'm not planning on putting this out until probably December, really.
Okay.
But I know we got other stuff to talk about in November meeting, so just wanted to share.
Okay, no, I'm glad you did. So I understand you're new to your position, and so there's a lot of things you still have to learn, and more than happy to help you out here.
All right, well, good
Yeah,
deal.
I think it was a good idea to, share it on, kind of at this early stage, and just get some preliminary, more so the technical input I think you're probably looking for.
Yeah.
You got our legal advice as well, but I'm sure those will all get flushed out through the process that you go through internally with checks and reviews.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Let's move on to agenda item under new business, item 4C, Fitchburg bicycling update. Phil, are you on? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I can try to help us. Thanks. Try to help us gain back a little bit of time here. Just because there seemed to be space for topics in this agenda, I told Ben that I could provide some updates on some cycling things. We do have a bicycling committee, so they're aware of all this stuff, but just given the overlap with emissions reduction and some city resource things, I figured that it would at least be interesting to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with some cycling things in Fitchburg. Can do some screen shares if you're interested. Otherwise, just kind of give a high level overview of this and see if you have any questions or thoughts. We got traffic, brands doesn't matter. We got some trail counters, infrared trail counters for our multi-use paths last year. So we've got 7 of those that have been out collecting data for 10 months now. Just kind of fun to go through and capture that data. This was precipitated by the League of American Bicyclists letting us know the last time we applied for our renewal of a bike-friendly community status. We got silver. We were kind of hoping that the city would get gold. And they said, well, one of your big sticking points is that when we look at the American Community Survey, kind of the every couple of years supplement to the decennial census, they said that your self-reported regular bike commuters are really low. So we don't think your ridership is high enough. So that was kind of the push that we needed to get a few trail counters in Fitchburg. So we've been collecting that data and getting some really good numbers showing that our ridership is as high as we think, quite a bit higher than the census shows. So a lot of people that are not self-reporting, or they're biking more for recreation or other things. But the upside of this being that we have this data now from these infrared counters, and we're going to be able to use this to start getting a better sense of how many people are using our trails, which parts of our trail system are being used more than others. Some of these counters are going to stay in the same place. Some we're going to rotate around just because we do have a limited number and 50 some miles of trails in Fitchburg. So we want to really get a good, robust sense of what ridership looks like, to use that both for bike infrastructure things, but also as we come across public works roads projects, and we're trying to get a sense of how we want to maybe do bike detours and things like that. So that's really exciting. we had the league does a bike-friendly communities.
Can I just ask a question on those trail counters? Do they distinguish between pedestrians and bicycles?
The ones that we got do not. So we got some that are a little bit more on the affordable side so that we could purchase more of them. They just shine an infrared beam, and when that beam is disrupted, then it clicks forward one. So it is ambivalent towards the mode of transportation, so we have to keep that in mind. It's also possible we have 3 counters around on trails near the bike roundabout. So if somebody goes down the Cannonball Trail and then takes the ramp up and south on the Badger State Trail, they could get double counted. So we know that this is a rough approximation, and we have to kind of use some educated guesses about what the true numbers are, but it at least gives us a good sense of the magnitude of ridership in the area. It also doesn't tell us directionality. We don't know if someone's going east or west along the Cannonball Trail, just that they've passed in front of that beam. The second bike item is that the league has bike-friendly communities awards. Fitchburg has been awarded since 2012. We were bronze initially. We've been renewed twice at silver. We're hoping to get gold next year. They also have a bicycle-friendly businesses program. This fall, 9 different Fitchburg area businesses applied for bike-friendly business status. All 9 were awarded. So Fitchburg went in one cycle from 3 up to 12 bicycle-friendly businesses. You might be familiar with the bike benefits program. A lot of businesses in Madison, and I think 6 or 7 in Fitchburg, do bike benefits where you can have a sticker on your helmet. You pay like $5 or $10 for the sticker. It stays on there forever. And any participating businesses will give you different types of discounts or promotions when you bike in and show the sticker on your helmet. This is a different one that's more about promoting ridership, certainly among your customers, but also among your employees. So seeing how well you're connected to local bike infrastructure. Do you provide racks? Do you provide showers, lockers, work flexibility? Do you promote bicycling events, things like that? So 9 new businesses. The really exciting thing about this one, I will do a screen share just to kind of show off the businesses that got this award. But the really exciting thing about this one was that there were these 9 businesses here that applied and were all awarded in the city of Fitchburg. For this cycle, it was either a July or an August application cycle. Arkansas, I believe, was the only other state that had as many as 9 businesses apply. And we had 9 just within the city of Fitchburg. So it was a really big cycle for Fitchburg to get a lot more recognition of a number of businesses that are really doing a lot to promote emissions decreased traveling.
Wow.
So that one was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
The third thing, as long as I've got the screen share up here, is we have been working with B-Cycle. It's a subsidiary of Trek Bikes. B-Cycle runs a bike share program. Let's actually go to slide 3 here. In a number of cities around the country, the one you might be most familiar with would be in Madison, where there are a number of these B-Cycle docks around Madison. It's a bike share program. It's run similarly to a car share program. If you are familiar with that, you pay a certain amount. Either you can pay out individually per ride, or you can pay for a weekly, monthly, annual membership. It gives you access to these bikes, and you just ride them, pick it up from a dock and return it to that same dock or another one. And you either pay a membership fee for covering your rides, or you pay a certain amount based on how long you have the bike out there. We were really excited to bring this to Fitchburg because our trail system is so good. We really are trying to push our bike friendly status for people who, maybe they would prefer to bike and avoid busy roads, or it's easier for them to access bikes and cars for a number of different reasons. We thought this would be a really nice system to get Fitchburg involved in. It would also help us to connect because Madison is running a B-Cycle program. If we can get B-Cycle in Fitchburg, those 2 systems can integrate with each other, and you can pick up a B-Cycle from a dock here and ride it to the Vilas Zoo or to downtown and drop it off at a dock there. So we've been working with B-Cycle on trying to get this up and running. I may have mentioned this earlier this summer. We were awarded several $100,000 from the DOT and a Transportation Alternatives Program grant. So that's going to help us once we get our initial set of stations here. And this is the circles in black. These are the ones that are pretty definitive. These are where we're starting out with kind of our phase one B-cycle programming. Then once we've got that established, then we've got a grant that's going to help us pay for an expansion. And the maroon and green circles are kind of some areas that we're envisioning. Those haven't been finalized yet. But we're just making more progress on getting this bike share program into Fitchburg and kind of serve several purposes. One, sort of maybe a first mile, last mile, if we can hook it up in some places to where there are bus stations, bus stops. But more than that, just providing an alternative transportation option to people who, maybe places where buses don't reach, or if they're looking for something in between walking and driving, this gives them another option to kind of get outside and get between places. All of the bikes that we're gonna get as part of the B-cycle program are going to be this third generation of, that's not the right one. There it is, of e-bikes here. And thought there was a better picture, I guess. Yeah, so e-bikes with these more streamlined docks. So the e-assist means that anytime you pedaling gets a little bit more difficult, the electronic assist will just automatically kick in, so you can do a 3, 4, 5 mile ride, and it'll take you a little longer because you're not driving, but you shouldn't even really break a sweat unless it's 90 and sunny, just because that pedal assist really does kick in strongly and eases the work for biking in a place like Fitchburg that has some pretty long distances and a lot of hills. So just excited about those three things all going on in Fitchburg, and figured I'd give RCC a quick update. Diane? You're muted.
Could you show the map again?
Sure.
And let me tell you my concern. People on the residents who live on the farther west part of Fitchburg complain that they don't have ways to get to, for example, McKee Park. And when we're talking about healthy neighborhoods, I'm just wondering, those phase one locations,
yes,
you seem to be concentrated in areas.
It has more wealth.
Yeah, more in the central corridor of Fitchburg.
So
there are several reasons for this. Without going through the several different kind of phases of program design that we talked through. Initially, Wade and I put together a map, and we wanted to start with something a little bit more concentrated with stations close together, because we figured we wanted to ensure that a pilot program was successful, that people would actually ride. If you put a station here where number 10 is, down where 11 is, and then McKee Farms Park, those are such wide distances that we worried you may not get a lot of ridership early on. The program doesn't prove to be successful. We don't get investment in expanding it. So we wanted to start with something more concentrated that can do a little bit better job at mirroring where you typically see a bike share program, which is in an urban downtown. We are a little bit more spread apart suburbs. So it already puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. So we wanted stations close together. The reason for these particular stations is primarily where funding is coming from. So phase one is entirely funded by the sponsors. We have several stations that are at either some tourism focus, so kind of some of the city hotels, chamber members, or city sites. This is funding from the Chamber of Commerce and from CETA. So those docks had to go at places that would kind of pay back into city tourism, and some of the, there's some docks here at the Chamber of Commerce at Agora, near the Chamber's headquarters. We got private sponsorships from Terravesa and from the Limerick Senior Housing here. So we're going to put docks at those locations. We're still working out specifically where number 2 is going to go. This isn't going to be another CETA site, but we felt that putting something all the way over here west of Verona Road, that's such a huge gap for this phase 1 development. We didn't feel super strongly, we didn't feel great about putting 2 sites that far apart initially. We kind of want to create more of a kind of hopping point that once we do put some sites here on the west side, that there is a little bit more of that connection between. The biggest thing does really have to do with where the funding came from. And then, we really wanted to center around the more of what is the activity center of Fitchburg is McKee Farms Park. And so kind of radiating out from there. The nice thing about phase 2, so much of this money coming from DOT, from the TAP grant, is that we don't need to worry about if we want to put something at more city parks, if we want to put something, we're number 14 here is the neighborhood hub that we're planning on Traceway Drive. We're not looking for a private sponsor to fund docks there. This is going to come, places like that over here at the parking lot for the Cap City Trail right off Cyene Road and McCoy. These are things that, because we're getting this funding from the DOT, we can place docks in places where we're not necessarily getting private business sponsors. So we're trying to find that balance. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question. I could.
Well, yeah, you answered it. I'm just still, I'm still concerned. I think that some residents will really feel slighted.
Absolutely. And another thing that I didn't mention that we are still looking into, and I actually owe my B-Cycle reps a follow-up on this one, is the general primary means of access for B-Cycle is you pay for a membership. This is an equity issue. If you can't afford to pay for that membership, you can't access the bikes. Now, when we're talking about people who can't afford vehicles, is that much easier for them to pay a monthly or an annual fee for B-Cycle? So we really are looking into ways that we can either find some private donors that will help to subsidize passes for folks who have trouble affording these memberships, or I know, like, I think the Madison Library, and this is something I don't want to. I believe what I've heard is that the Madison Library offers subsidized or even free passes to some of their patrons. That's something I'd love to look into at phase 2. We're trying to get some docks down at the Civic Campus, maybe split between the community center and the library. And of course, our bus line currently doesn't come down to the library, so there's an access equity issue. These are definitely things that we're looking into and have considered. There's not an easy answer, unfortunately, but we really are working hard to, this was a significant part of our application to the DOT, is that we are going to explore how we can use this to drive equity solutions in the city and not exacerbate inequities. It's absolutely one of the top priorities for me with this program. So it's for sure something we're looking into.
Thanks.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks.
I had the same type of concern as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it's stuff that came up early on as we were discussing this. And we really are committed to making sure that we find a way to address that.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other discussion, we need to keep moving forward here. And thank you, Phil.
And by the way, congratulations, Phil.
Yeah, congratulations. How's parenthood?
Oh, thanks. You missed the picture I shared before the meeting started. It's good. I have found out I can survive on less than 6 hours of sleep a lot more frequently than I would have thought. So, the things you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
all
great.
Right, thank you. Let's move on to agenda 5, old business. We had 40 minutes allotted to talk about this, but we really don't have that much time to discuss it. That's the 2023 RCC project and event planning for next year. And trying to, I guess, maybe get some ideas how we can move forward with the limited time we have to get through this, as well as the other agenda items. So I guess one thought I have was, maybe we can talk about some of the key focus items that we'd want to focus on 2023. I mean, just to refresh what we covered in 2022, one was the progress towards completing the sustainability plan, which I assume would be something that we're interested in. A dark sky ordinance was the other one, equitable tree plantings, and community outreach on various topics like invasive species, idling reduction, And, I think we've covered some of those this year in 2022. So what would be some similar type things that, we as a commission would like to focus on for 2023?
I feel like we haven't really, except for the invasive species, I don't think that we've made much of a dent in the things that we wanted to do for this year.
Well, dark sky, we did have a conversation about that, but I'm not sure it got carried any further other than the meetings that we had. So I don't know, Ben, has there been any update, or Gabriella, on that? We talked about a dark sky ordinance, having something proposed, and
Did that
I don't know
never?
if Ben was around for that.
I think that was Phil.
Yeah, so that I will admit one or two of these items, I was kind of starting to make a little headway, and definitely the leaf has stalled a couple of things out that I need to pick back up again. I don't know, Ben, when we went through, and I kind of gave you the introduction to RCC Matters, I gave you links to the calendar and the annual reports. I don't know if we talked in depth about the priority items for this year, did we? I think
not too much. I guess
okay,
I
don't think I went heavy into detail on that. Yeah. So
I know in the ordinance there is for certain developments, at least, a requirement that lighting has to be dark sky compliant. I don't know if that came out of some earlier conversations this year, if that's.
I think that's something that already existed. So I have spoken with some other staff members about a dark sky initiative. We've had conversations. It has not progressed yet to the point of actually writing an ordinance. I think it's the conversations have resulted in some concerns and some food for thought that kind of had me noodling, and I need to step back into that. And I'll be at City Hall tomorrow. Ben can certainly talk with you and let you know where things have gotten to. But yeah, there have been conversations with staff. We haven't gotten to the point of writing anything yet.
Okay, so but it's still something that you're going to follow through on, and I guess get back to us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see about that and see maybe, I guess what was the goal? Were you looking for kind of a more robust dark sky ordinance that would cover all developments?
That's where the conversation needs to get to. So the best model for a dark sky ordinance that I'm familiar with, and I think Madison has something that I'm not as up to speed on. I know the town of Verona has a pretty robust dark sky ordinance.
Yeah.
But the town of Ordinance also has much less concentrated population. I believe our building inspection chair is also does some work for the town of Verona, and he oversees their dark sky ordinance. Similar to our lawn height thing, it's kind of a complaint-based thing, so he doesn't really get any complaints. Instead, he doesn't have to do a lot in the town of Verona with their ordinance. With something like implementing an ordinance in Fitchburg, we have to discuss and consider how we would handle existing fixtures versus brand new. It's much easier to implement an ordinance that says any brand new outdoor fixtures need to be dark sky compliant. For existing, there's a question of, do you allow things to be grandfathered in? Do you provide a phase-in period, or how do you handle that? Mm-hmm. And it's a tricky one because there are so many different types of developments, types of outdoor lighting, on the building versus in the lawn versus parking lots and streets and things like that. So that's sort of where things got to, was having that discussion, looking at what already exists out there, and kind of thinking about, what would be the ultimate goal is to have everything dark sky compliant, and we're not creating any disruptions for wildlife at night, while also not compromising on the safety that nighttime lighting does provide. But it is complex and does require a lot of digging into that.
Okay. So I think it's good that we brought this up as a focus item, and that it's something that's going to continue to be addressed. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what you guys produce out of this. So let's just keep it moving forward.
One suggestion, Ben, it might be helpful for you to go back. We talked about this, I think, at 2 RCC meetings. It might be helpful for you to go back and listen to those meetings. Ron invited a special speaker at one of the meetings. So I think that might be helpful.
Yeah,
Great.
Okay. I don't think we ever had any discussions about equitable tree plantings. I think that's something that Josh had brought up. So
I'm not sure that that's not more. I think that might be more appropriately addressed by the Tree Advisory Committee.
It's something that I believe has been discussed. I no longer sit on tree advisory, but I know that had come up conceptually. I can ask Alder Aradafrada if they're having if they've had discussions on that since this year to date, and I can get back.
I kind of feel like that's their turf.
Yeah, I would agree too. And the other one was a progress toward completing a sustainability plan. I mean, we haven't had any updates on how that's been going, and I know Phil, you've been out.
So that one, I have a draft of the RFP that I feel pretty good about. It made some more progress on it after presenting it to the RCC in July, I want to say. Where I'm at right now is I was prepared to send it over to legal for their review before I went on parental leave, and then it turns out that our attorney was also on parental leave. So just some fun timing with that. I'm actually going to check in this week and see if she's back yet. And yeah, try to make sure that gets looked at before I head out on part 2 of my leave. My goal is still to put this RFP out in January.
When do you head out again?
I will be out roughly from mid-November to the first week of January.
Okay. So will you be at our November RCC meeting?
I believe that's the first day of my second part of leave. So
okay.
I'll have to look into it. I don't think so, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
Phil, I also just want to, in regards to the sustainability plan, I've been talking with Misty about trying to get $25,000 more in the budget next year. For it. So obviously there's a benefit to delaying the RFP, and that I guess they could put it out for more money. So I can touch base with you on that, but I'm working on
that'd be great.
5,000. So
okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's something that I have talked with Misty and Chad about as well. Is we do have the 25,000 that was budgeted for this year, so we need to make sure we're able to carry that over into next year's budget. But yeah, if we can get that up to 50, and that was one of the things that we had talked about in July, was that the initial draft language said something about there's at least $25,000, but maybe more. And we really didn't like how vague that was, because you could get a whole wide range of applications, and maybe a really strong applicant, but they bid in at $25,000 and don't give you something as robust as somebody else. So having a little bit more nailed down sense of exactly what the budget is, I think will be really beneficial.
And I will say, it looks like I just realized recently with my conversation with Misty, it looks like there was $10,000 put in for next year's budget for phase 2. So It looks like there's at least 10,000. I'm assuming that no one takes it out in the next few days, because amendments are due on Friday. But I still do want to.
I have not actually looked at the mayor's budget yet, so that'll be good to see.
I didn't catch it on the first round, but Misty caught it. So so I think it looks like we have 10,000. Then it's just a matter of maybe finding another 15, and I have some idea of that. I can cover that when we get to me.
Great, thanks.
So I guess based upon our discussions we've had for the last 10 minutes, so for the RCC's focus for 2023, can we safely assume that we'll probably still continue work on getting a dark sky initiative or ordinance going? I mean, there's no reason why we still can't focus on that.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a very doable task.
And then the sustainability plan, just keep that going as well.
Yeah, we'll be able to get that plan started next year.
Yeah, then we had community outreach on various topics. We had invasive species, idling reduction. I'm not sure if we ever have a detailed discussion about the idling reduction, or
no, we didn't really do. I think the only community outreach we've done this year. We did the solar, well, we didn't really do it, but we did the solar farm and invasive species. I don't think we did another one. Did we, Chris?
No, I think it's really been those two events
Yeah.
So
have
I
really
think
been it so far.
we just need to talk about what we want to do next year. Maybe next year will be more like a normal year.
We're due for one of those now, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, overdue.
I don't know, election coming up, so. So
Don't change anything.
I guess what I can do is I can, I guess either Phil, work with you and Ben to update our calendar. I mean, a lot of these things still carry forward into the next year, like the spring cleanup and the spring and fall recycling events and some of these other things.
Yep, I did. Ben and I definitely found when we looked at when we were going through documents that the calendar is in need of a refresh anyway. So yeah, it'd be good to dig into that.
So that would work with you on that, and just we can have that at the next meeting to go through that calendar. So set aside for that. If everybody thinks that's okay.
That's fine. I just want to remind you that this calendar is primarily a tool to keep the agenda on track so we don't forget to do something.
But it's a very valuable tool, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I ask a quick question? I don't know if you guys discussed this at the last meeting that I wasn't able to attend, but I remember at a previous meeting, we had talked about trying to get the grocery store bag recycling program up and going again. Was that also something that we wanted to continue to pursue?
It is something that we want to pursue. I think where we're at with the last conversation is that I believe, I can't remember if somebody was going to reach out to Pick and Save. And I don't know if that's happened yet, but if that hasn't happened, I think, let's make that a task between this meeting and the next meeting to see if that's still something that we are going to try to do yet this fall.
I think Gabriella offered to contact Pick and Save and then send the contact information to either you or me. And then at the last meeting, we just didn't follow up.
Yeah, I have not done that, so I don't know.
That's okay. Yeah, we can just, maybe we can talk about that now real quick, since it's a possible fall event, Gabrielle, do you want to take that on still, or do you want to pass that back to Diane or myself to have that follow up with Pick and Save to see if there might be a time that we can do that? At this point, it would probably be the first half of November if we're going to make it happen.
If someone can do that, I'm October is a tough month for me. So I should have done it last month. Okay. But yeah, if someone could take that, it would be much appreciated.
Well, maybe Diane and I will just get some correspondence going back and forth and make that happen in the next week between the two of us. And then
I'll try it, Chris, but October is also a really bad month for me, but I'll try.
Okay. So I think that's probably the event for this year, but I think part of this agenda item was to talk about events in 2023. We've kind of talked about focus areas, but just with our remaining time, if we could talk a little bit about ideas for events for next year, and I have a couple that I can start off with while you're grinding on thinking of your events. So one is we kind of talked about getting out into different parts of the community again. The Fitchburg Library has always been a place where we probably had a majority of our events. But I think we would like to get back out in the community. And one of the things we talked about at the last meeting was multifamily recycling and, trying to improve that. And Kim and I don't know if Diane, I think you probably participated as well. This is all the way back in 2015. We did an event at the Boys and Girls Club
Yeah.
where we worked with the kids there, and we gave out reusable bags that day, and we did, I think, a recycling relay. I think we had another activity as well, but potentially circling back to Boys and Girls Club and doing an event over there, I think would be a nice step in the right direction. I don't know that we have a great multifamily residence at the current time, or if anybody has one, let me know. We had a prior contact, or a prior actually RCC member that lived in one, and that was kind of where we did some of our multifamily recycling outreach, which I'm open to doing, as well again, and getting some of those programs going. But I think, one that we could circle back to is the Boys and Girls Club. If we're looking at next year, that would already been 8 years since we've done that last, which seems impossible, but I think that would be one idea. And then the other idea I have is we were on the verge of doing our 2020 annual event on food waste, and we had a really good event that we were working on, and we had a venue at Promega to have the event, and they were going to co-host. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and we've never circled back and actually had that event. I think Promega did follow up and had that event internally in 2021. But I would love to get back to food waste. I know that's going to be a focus in Dane County. It's a focus of the Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables. It's something that we're working on in the schools right now. So I would love to circle back to food waste as a potential annual event idea.
We also talked about dark sky ordinance, but maybe not an annual event, just something that just like the invasive species, where we invite the public to come.
Yep.
I think the food waste, Chris, was that going to be primarily Promega staff, Promega employees?
Not necessarily. I think we're going to invite the public to it.
Okay.
I think we could, it kind of depended on what the timing was going to be on that. And I don't remember exactly what that was in April of 2020, if we were going to have that middle of the day or late in the day. But I think the plan was to try to have it so that it was both Promega employees and open to general public. So, maybe this one we would target, since they've already had it, maybe we'd target more general public, but maybe Promega would still be interested in hosting.
I think it would be great to do the general public. I'm not sure how we can entice people to come to it, but I think it would be a great idea.
Yeah, another thought I had for particularly for an event is maybe do something on the lines, Phil, that was held at the library for electric vehicles, is do something similar for electric bikes. And maybe we could get Wheel and Spoke, and maybe a good time to talk about, our electric bike program that we have in the city, have it at the library, and have different, vendors of electric bike come and talk about their bikes. And then, we could talk, or somebody from the city could talk about the electric bike program that we have in the city and what we're doing with it. So I think that would be potentially a good event.
That would be interesting.
I would rather partner with a bike and ped group and let them, we could help market it and maybe give the idea to them. But I think that I'd like to see them maybe take the lead on it.
Who would that, do you have any suggestions, Diane, or?
I don't know who's on that committee. Phil, can you help us out?
Yeah, so like the bike committee is chaired by Mark Hamilton. He's also he's been on CETA and with the Fitchburg Chamber. He's a member of Bike Fitchburg. Bike Fitchburg is very active, and I'm sure would be would have some good contacts for an event like that.
Are you the staff member on that committee?
I am. Yep.
So maybe you could just mention the idea and see what they think about it.
I could do that. There will be. It's not exactly the same as what you're suggesting, Ron, but when the B-cycle system is installed next year and ready to launch, there will be kind of kickoff event, ribbon cutting, bike chain cutting, grand opening thing. So that will at least be one avenue for raising awareness and excitement, but looking at different brands of EVs and having that kind of a show could be really fun too. I can suggest it to Mark. I know they're focused on more of the bike friendly community renewal for next year, but they have not been known to limit themselves to just one thing at a time. So I'll see if they're interested.
Okay. It's just an idea. So,
Yeah. And we could, with an idea like that, if we were working with, another bicycling organization within Fitchburg, in the past, we've worked with the tree advisory committee. And so our community outreach team worked with them directly. So we kind of brought some structure to the event if they haven't done a lot of events, and kind of the marketing piece to it. But they could coordinate speakers and some of the content associated with it.
I think
something like that.
Yeah, something that would provide good bicycling overlap would be bringing back, I just didn't end up having the time this year, but bringing back the sustainability bike tour that I led in 2021. That was really well received. We had 20 to 30 participants. I think it'd be really fun to bring that back again next year in conjunction with Earth Month, or either Earth Month in April or National Bike Month in May.
Could that be a potential annual event for us? Like we had the invasive species one this year.
That was my idea, was that it could be an annual thing. I think I'd like to have a couple different types of routes around Fitchburg, so we're not always visiting the same sites.
Right.
So I have the tour that I led in 2021. I'd like a couple more, and I just didn't design a new one this year. But it could be an annual one as long as we've got staff or other capacity to lead it. Yeah.
Okay. And also, we need to make sure that, for some of these events that we have, that we reach out to other neighborhoods, so make sure we're inclusive and, demonstrate equity within and having the healthy communities, all those good things that we need to do. So it just, to me, it doesn't seem like a lot of our events are like in the northwest part of the city limits or the northern part. So
yep.
We need to think about that.
We understandably host a lot of things at the Civic Campus, which is the municipality center. That's not anywhere near the population center of Fitchburg, and that creates that tension. But good to think about. Okay.
Since we're talking about next year's events, and since last year, I guess we didn't contact Pelletieri as soon as they needed to be contacted to schedule our e-cycle or whatever we want to call that event. Maybe we should talk about that now, because I'm looking at April, and typically we do the waterway cleanup relatively early in that month.
Yep. So I planned to follow the same process as last year. We actually reached out to both Resource Solutions and Pelletieri in October and November of last year and got both dates in the calendar. There was double booking, that there was a mix up there, but we'll reach out to get both dates for next year as soon as this fall's event has completed.
Do they pick the date or we pick the date?
We work with them. We kind of figure out what do they have available, what do we prefer given limitations, things that we're trying to avoid.
Well, we seem to have, maybe it was the year before, but we contacted them other people are starting to book Pelletieri now, so maybe we don't wait until after this weekend's event, although I realize we only have a couple days to go, but just keep in mind that the cleanup is usually done like the first or second weekend, and then there's
during Earth Week.
Pretty much any weekend besides the cleanup one would work. We like to avoid overlapping with the Arbor Day tree plantings, which is also usually right on top of Earth Day, and that's usually filled with events. But we'll see what they have available. We could start looking at just always scheduling 6 or 7 months out instead of doing them both together at the end of the year. But we'll get that figured out soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I guess an action item of this is that I'll work with Phil and Ben just to revise our calendar for a real draft, so we can circulate among the members for review, and then have it open for discussion again in November. Because we don't have a meeting in December, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so we got 8:14. All right, so item 5B, I guess Chris and Kim, any updates on the Aldo Leopold MMSD recycling initiative?
Yeah, just a brief one. So just prior to this meeting, we were invited to, well, Sustained Dane was invited, and I attended to answer any questions. They just presented to the Madison School Board and superintendent on the recycling initiative and food waste reduction initiative. So the school board and the superintendent is now fully informed on what we're planning to do. And this was part of kind of the operations team's rollout, you know, kind of their well-rounded rollout with improving food options for students, more farm to table things, local, you know, locally grown within, you know, 50 miles if possible of Madison, or 150 miles of Madison. And then, you know, kind of the back end stuff with the composting. So we made mention of the composting that's happening in 2 of the schools, and the carton recycling, which started at Leopold. And so the school board was very receptive and appreciative of this initiative. And they actually asked about, you know, how fast we could have single-use plastics eliminated from the, you know, kind of the food prep stream. There was some discussion about more food prep in kitchens at schools. So trying to use kind of their central prep kitchen for bigger picture items, but, you know, doing a little bit more prep at the kitchens where they thought they would, you know, potentially, you know, have less packaging items, but we're still working our way out of the COVID era with packaging. So I think it was really encouraging, and excited that the little project that Kim kind of came up with has gotten up to this stage now where, you know, the full Madison School Board and, you know, pretty much all their leadership are well aware of it now and supportive of it. So now it's just a matter of doing the scaling up over the next year. So continues to progress slowly but surely.
Good job.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that happened, and then Aldo Leopold and kind of their new administrative leadership, Sustained Aid has been in touch with them. And just for Diane and Kim, I know that you guys have volunteered out there. We are working to kind of set up a meeting with them to get in and see where things happen to be in the cafeteria after all this time, and see where we're at, what we got for custodial staff, and what do we need to get going again back in the cafeteria. You know, I don't think that they have paper trays anymore. So it's just going to be a learning curve in terms of where are we at and what adjustments do we need to make to our previous program to get it rolling again in the schools. So
do we have a new contact at Leopold?
There's a new person, Jessica, who was our previous contact. She is now the principal at Emerson Elementary School over on the east side of Madison. And so she's out at Leopold. So there's probably a new, and I know she passed that to somebody. I'm not sure who that is. And then I'm hopeful that Dustin is still there. So we at least have a little bit of continuity, or at least the 2 custodians that were working with him last school year. But we're now working to get back in there and figure out where things are at.
Yeah.
And how we need to move forward. So both hallways and in the cafeteria.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
All right, move on to item agenda 6, council update. Gabriella.
Yes, thank you. So a couple notes about things that happened at council. The Cheryl Drive stormwater improvement budget was approved by council, even though it was far above what was put in the budget. So we used ARPA funds to fill in the gap, and that project is going to move forward. The mayor declared October 5th, 2022 Energy Efficiency Day. I can't remember I think that's been going for several years, but just wanted to note it. Maybe we could get some RCC members out there next year. And Phil might be talking about this later, right? No?
I don't need to now.
Okay, yeah, so it exists, and maybe we can do something more with that next year. Anyway, and then the rest of it's all in regards to the budget process. So the budget is due. Sorry, we had finance committee meetings for the budget last week on Tuesday and Wednesday, where we went through each department one by one. They lasted about 6 hours total, answered all our questions, and now council amendments are due by Friday. So very, very tight deadline on that one, and I'm still working on amendments. A couple of notes about what was in the budget. As I said, when Phil spoke, there was 10,000 added to the sustainability planning that came from the TID closure money. And I am working with Misty to get another 15,000. The budget is very tight this year. Like literally there's like $2,000 of levy limit, and that funding would come from the tax levy. So my idea, I think I'm going to work with her to see if I can find money in this year's budget and do a budget amendment to transfer that money so that we can have all that money going into 2023. And put that.
Gabriella, can't we use ARPA funds for that?
We could, but that's been allocated separately. It's all been allocated basically in the 2023 budget. So I have to remove something in order to add it back in, which requires me to pass 2 amendments. Where I think that I think there are vacancy savings in this current budget that we could apply to it. It's a different process, but I think that's more likely to end up working. That being said, I'm thinking about maybe submitting the amendment anyway, just so it's there. I can always pull the amendment. Anyway, sorry, that's a lot of my thinking, but I'm gonna keep going.
I remember that when we presented we did our presentation to the council president said, if we need more money, it'll be there. Something like that. Remember, Chris? So I'm hoping that there's some support to get us more money, because if there's no ARPA fund, if the ARPA funds are gone. Anyway, that was his comment.
Yeah, it's a good thing I can bring it up. The thing about it, it's just with the budget, when every dollar is allocated, I have to have an amendment to remove something and then an amendment to add something. And that it just it makes it very, very difficult to, I don't know. I don't know that. I think it might be easier actually to find money in this year's budget, even though that would require a 2/3 vote of the council. But the council has expressed support for the sustainability plan, so I see no reason why an amendment like that would or a budget resolution like that would be a problem. So anyway, that's my thinking about sustainability plan. I know you all care about that quite a lot, so I wanted to give you some detail on that. The other thing I wanted to note about the utility rates. So the recycling rate that's in the budget currently is $228, which is a lot more than what we had talked about at the last time. That being said, those utility rates are not set by the budget. All the fines and features and different fee structures are in the budget, and they help inform it, but we can set or change the rates at any time in the future. And I don't believe we've adopted the rate as like a separate thing. So my understanding is that we can talk about that at a later date, even though.
Wait a minute. The refuse and recycling rate that we recommended, that was brought to council and council increased it?
No, it never came to council as a separate item. It has not yet come to council as a separate item. I just wanted to flag it that it's in the budget as $228. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that it has to be that, but it's possible that it might be difficult to pull it farther down. I think that was even higher than what Ben might have recommended.
It is.
Yeah.
Ben, where are we on that? Because I remember in the past that goes to council and they discuss it as a separate item.
Yeah, so it's going to council on the 13th. I changed it to 228 after talking with Misty and forecasting out some few years. And there was a pretty big concern that if we don't have so I think that was $13 basically from 215 to 228, so $1 a month, about 6% increase. But the fear was if we skip this year a little bit and the fuel surcharges are even greater than what we're anticipating, and then plus a new contract coming up in 24, when Pelletari's expires, then, there's a pretty good chance that there's going to be an extremely significant increase, like the last one where it was, I think, between contracts and it went up like 160 something to like 200. I don't know, but it was, it was $30+ increase.
That's because we were buying the carts.
Oh, that was part of the carts. Well, regardless, if you forecast it out and you look at if diesel costs are going to be the same over the next couple of years on this contract, it's going to put us in a kind of a bad spot to where we'd be forced to have an even greater increase at some point. So this is just to try to keep it even, and hopefully diesel prices don't increase or go down, and then the following year you would see, maybe a couple dollar increase.
We didn't skimp. We were still well within the targeted fund balance. So I really don't appreciate this. People are pinching pennies everywhere. Costs are up everywhere. I think this is incredibly insensitive.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I just say we recommend what, $222?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's another $6 on top of that. So.
I don't know, $6 over the course of a year.
Well, it's 215 to 228.
But it's more so kind of how much it's come up over the course of time. I mean, I think we were in the 150s not too long ago, and we're just on this exponential ride up, and we've got to find creative ways to try to keep it in check, so it's not this exponential rise. But I thought that we were kind of considering all kind of the fund balances and whatnot as well. So that's a little bit of a surprise, but kind of the last one, the big jump was partially more of a recycling markets issue, where the Chinese recycling markets were not as strong, and so we were dependent, and there's this transition to more US markets, and I think that transition is still taking place, but that was one of the major drivers the last time, and I think we also got I think Pelletary needs to do things to try to be cost competitive as well. They want to keep our business, and there's other competitors out there. That's why we put an RFP out there. So I don't think that they're just gonna completely skyrocket with that. So they've got to be creative with that, and we've got to be creative as a community in how we keep our other ways or things that we can do as a community to try to keep that price from just continuing to skyrocket up for each all of our residents.
And I will say I'll bring this all to council. So and I expressed this in after the last RCC meeting at council. I specifically talked about your recommendation that we looked at the rates, but we haven't had that conversation in council yet. But I did want to flag that that's what's currently sitting in the budget, and obviously you need a majority vote of the council to change. You need 5 out of 8 votes in order to change it. So it's hard to say, but I did want to flag it for y'all.
So Ben gave that to the council to put in the budget after our last meeting. How did that? Yes.
But we're going to be talking about that separately at council, right, Ben? Or are we adopting it as part of the budget process?
It's being referred out on the 13th. When it goes,
okay.
Yeah. So there'll be
Great.
Opportunity.
Great. So we'll have, and I can let you know too, with the referral sheet, I can let you know when it's coming to council if any of you want to come and talk and represent your own like take on that opinion. I can let you know when that's coming back to council.
It's being referred out, like, will it come back to RCC? Is that what you're saying?
No,
No.
it won't come
It'll
back
be
to
time.
RCC.
Because there won't be time.
hmm
I don't appreciate the way this was handled at all.
Well, next year we'll get an earlier jump on it.
Yeah, okay, so resolution R 19822, it's being referred out tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, at tomorrow's council meeting.
Well, yeah.
Um, and then it's going to Board of Public Works and Finance. And it is coming back to council. Hold on just a minute, on October 25th. So at the following council meeting. October 25th. And that's prior, our budget night is November 1st, the following week.
Okay. Anything else, Gabriella?
Yes, a couple more things. I'm curious about the sustainability related RCC event supplies is a line item in the budget. It's $150, which I think is what it's been for a while. Is that accurate? Do you want me to put in for some more? Would more be useful? Do we like often? I know we try to get donations, but I just wanted to throw it out there because, you know, doubling the budget is, I'm pretty sure I can find $150 in the budget if we wanted to double it, or I just wanted to throw it out there to see if that would be useful.
How much do we spend this year? Do we know?
I don't think that we've spent too much. I mean, I think we got the pizzas donated. That was our main expense, and then we got all of our prizes donated.
Well,
So
Kim, did you get reimbursed?
I did. Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Diane.
I think that was our only expense.
That might have been the only thing. Yeah, this year
Well-
we didn't get doubled, but
Well, and if we are thinking of doing another event at the Boys and Girls Club, I know, you know, there would be some probably additional costs to that if we wanted to try to decorate bags like we did last time, or, you know, obviously we would probably try, if we were going to have food, we would probably try to get that donated, but there might be, you know, some additional expenses to those events.
yeah, typically Ian's Pizza will provide for sustainability events every 6 months, but not more frequently than that. So if we happen to get back to the frequency of having 3 or 4 events, you know, it might be nice to double that amount of funds just to have some.
Hey, hang on though, because food, remember Misty
Yep.
said food has to be done, it's a separate category. It can't
Right,
fall
right.
under. So I don't think that would help, Gabriella, for you to increase the line item you're looking at.
Oh, maybe there's a separate line item then that I missed.
I think there's
Okay.
probably a couple of separate.
Oh, I'm
items.
sorry. I did see. Sorry, it's right underneath that. Food for green events. $75.
I think that should be fine. Don't,
Okay. Great.
So,
Um,
so no change then?
well, maybe for supplies, like Kim
Yeah.
said.
Yeah,
what-
I'm thinking
that's what I thought it
supplies.
was more so for.
So,
that
so
takes increasing the 150 to doubling it, or?
Possibly just,
Adding
have-
$75.
or adding something. Maybe just put 250 to make it a round number. If it's 150.
up $100.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty modest request. So, sorry, page 114. Bump to 150 to
250.
250. Great. I hope I can get that one passed. Hopefully. I think I have the skills to get that one through.
If you have problems with $100, you're gonna have problems with 10,000.
Theoretically. And then, oh, I'm also looking at Swan Creek Monitoring Station. I've been talking, trying to collect information. I reached out to Ron. Sorry, Ron, I haven't looked through that yet. And then,
Okay, yeah, I sent you that email, so.
right, so I saw it, but I haven't dug into it yet. But I'll try to get Todd or someone on the phone, but I can always collect more information later. But just trying to determine the amount to add to that so we can add additional measurements.
Yeah, I think I gave you a $6,500 cost.
Okay,
So for all those additional parameters to be measured.
Yeah, you should maybe shoot that my way. I've been talking with Todd. He just sent over a draft agreement for the Swan
great.
Creek monitoring. So,
Okay.
and that included the dissolved phosphorus.
Yeah.
I don't know, Ron, was there other?
Well, and nitrates.
Nitrates. Okay.
Yeah, nitrates and dissolved orthophosphorus.
Yeah. Okay. I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm
if
sorry, Ben.
nitrates wasn't.
I should have copied you on that email when I sent it out. I can forward you what I sent to them and then what Ron sent to me.
All right, perfect.
But I do have to submit them on Friday just so that everyone knows that the urgency of that deadline. I can always add context later, but the key is the number and what it's funding.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think, yeah, I guess one thing I wanted to also mention is that personnel, there was a big change in personnel in the budget. There's going to be, we did a big market poll to decide how much staff are being paid and if it was actually matching market rate. And there's everyone across the board is getting a 3% raise. And then people that are paid under market are being brought up to market. And so that's up to 20% increase in pay, mostly for our lowest paid employees, our lowest pay grades. Those are the ones that are going up 15, 17, 20%. And then we're bringing all LTE, all limited time employment or part-time employees up to hourly employees up to $15 per hour minimum. So that's an across the board. Obviously, it affects all sorts of different things that we touch. But I think it's a really good change. It's a big budget item, but it's 100% worth the money. I think it's well supported by council. And then it looks like we'll also be able to do merit increases for staff next year as well. So it's a good change, but it's where a lot of that budget money is going. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, wow, 8:35, right on time for the staff.
Nice job, Kim.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good job, Kim. I've been on solid waste and stormwater updates.
Yep. So solid waste, got some more educational material and welcome packets out to some of the new City of Fitchburg residents starting, October 31st. So that's town of Madison, making contact with some people over there and making sure that they understand and know what the new guidelines and procedures are for solid waste collection.
Did you also send them some information about recycling?
Yeah, so they all got, all the single family residences got the full recycling guide, a couple other like cheat sheet items, and we're working on sending the just the cheat sheet to apartments so they can have that posted and spent I guess around for people to have them. I don't know if we're going to mail the full recycling guide to all of the residents in multifamily, just because they're not using the curbside and it's a lot of paper, but we'll get them information on the drop-off site and all that good stuff as well.
Well, the multifamily places might have a different waste hauler and they may have different recycling guides. So
right, it might not really apply to them as much, but there's still, I guess, some good information in there as far as where you can take things. I think that's one of the nice things about the recycling guide. It's got all the addresses and locations where you can take smoke alarms or just stuff that you're not going to be able to put in anyone's dumpster. But right, it's kind of a lot of paper to be mailing out to all those apartments, so we'll probably just condense something down that's a little bit more applicable to what they'd be looking for.
Well, just so for your information, RCC wanted to mail an updated recycling guide to Fitchburg residents. I think that was this year or last year, and Public Works shot that down. The Public Works Commission.
Due to cost?
They said it was no, because we had the money for it, and the money was allowed for it. They said it was too much paper.
Okay. Well, I guess everyone at the town of Madison got one now. But yeah, it is a lot of paper. That's true, but I think it's valuable to have. You just keep it on the table, and then you've got it posted on the fridge. So maybe that's something we could revisit and see if that's something we want to shoot for again, because I don't know if that's, it seems like a good idea.
Well, I
or
think
maybe
we need to revisit why Public Works still oversees refuse and recycling. That was supposed to be taken off when RCC got a alder assigned to us, and that never happened. I mean, I think that's just redundancy, and I think that needs to change.
Okay. Stormwater wise, we've got the public information meeting for the Sherrill Drive project planned for October 20th at the Fitchburg Community Center. As far as ongoing studies, Dunn's Marsh, Seminole Glen, and TMDL studies are all ongoing. We're working on a RFP for pond dredging. There's 4 or 5 ponds that we've got some information on. In the past, they had just used a hand auger and measured some silt depths at one location. This year we're going to get a little RC drone to drive out on the pond so we can topo the actual surface of the bottom of the pond and see if things really need dredging or not, and get a bid package put together for hopefully some work early in 2023 for some pond dredging. And then been doing some field verification work with Town of Madison. It's kind of the last push to get all their record drawings, confirm that what they gave us in their GIS is what they actually have out in the street. So there's been a lot of field verification and survey. Engineering technician Aaron's been pretty busy doing a lot of survey work also, just with having another technician down and some other PTO. So yeah, it's been pretty busy with kind of that stuff, but I think the other big thing, I guess I could have mentioned it earlier, when we're talking about goals, it's not really a big RCC goal, I don't know, but I think we could be due for a stormwater ordinance update. I think there's a couple things that I would like to have in the Fitchburg ordinance that's currently in the Dane County ordinance, as well as looking to other small changes we could make to kind of as a loophole to achieve some other certain things. Like, for example, in the Stoner Prairie plan, it was recommended that infiltration for new development would be 100% of pre-development. While that wasn't enforceable by state statute, you can't require any site to infiltrate more than 90% of pre-development. But there are some things you could do to kind of get the same effect that are enforceable. For example, you could require the 25-year post-development peak discharge equal the pre-development 10-year. So you're actually making them go back rather than matching a 25 to a 25. You're having to match the post 25 to the pre-10. So you're not making them increase infiltration on site, but you're essentially getting a similar side effect by having that larger basin. You're going to have a slower release rate. And then if they are using a bioretention or an infiltration facility, they'd probably just end up meeting that 100% just due to the increase in size. So that's something to have to do a little bit more looking into. I know the Village of Oregon has an ordinance where I think it's developers have to bring their 25-year down to the 10-year and the 100-year down to the 25-year. So pretty significant, but it hasn't really seemed to be deterring any development out there. So yeah, those are just kind of two things I'd like to look at. And then also establishing some requirements for public storm sewer design, as far as, having to design for a 10-year, or without surcharging the inlets or manholes, requiring that all stormwater in a 100-year event be kept in the right of way, or at least having some kind of a lane of travel through the crown of the road for emergency vehicles. These are all things that we kind of have some loose standards on, but nothing codified in the ordinance. So I think that's a step that we could take in 23. And that's that about wraps it up for me.
Okay, I guess the sustainability field, is there any update there?
Yeah, a couple things. I'm working with Kevin Richmond, the buildings and grounds supervisor, on a final retro commissioning update. Some of you may recall there was a retro commissioning study done back in 2012 or 13 looking at improvements that could be made to municipal buildings to improve energy efficiency. The final viable measure from that list was completed last year when the FACT TV server room was split off to help improve HVAC efficiency in City Hall. So I've got the list of everything that was done. I want to see if I can come up with an estimate on total cost and payback. One difficulty is that a number of the measures that were implemented were things that the initial RCX study referred to as uncalculated. They weren't sure exactly how to estimate total savings, and so we never got an initial estimate. So at the very least, I'll provide an update at an upcoming meeting to RCC on kind of those final list of measures that were and were not completed. I don't know that I'll be able to get an estimate on total savings realized, but we've finished everything that we think that we're going to be able to do from that list. So that's kind of nice to get that wrapped up. I don't remember if this was from somebody in RCC or someone else, but there have been some questions about the informational signs out by the sort of between the two parking lots at Civic Campus, providing information on sustainability at the Civic Campus, especially the LEED Gold Library. One of those signs, for whatever reason, the display is cracked and really faded. It looks like it's very difficult to read. So I'm going to look into what it would cost to get that reprinted and given a little bit of a facelift so that it's actually serving its purpose of educating the public when they come and take a look at those. The Green Tier Legacy Communities Scorecard I've been talking about for a while, that is just about complete. We're in beta testing now. We've got about 15 communities from the Green Tier Legacy communities that are volunteering to go through beta testing. So they're kind of going through their 2020 and 21 and 22 data to fill that out and see how it works for them. We're going to get some feedback, do some final revisions, and then should be ready for me to put together our Green Tier report next year with 2021 data using the new scorecard. So you'll get to see that next year for the first time in full force. And then I believe, Alder Gerhardt, this applies to you as well, but I'm going to the Growing Sustainable Communities Conference next week in Dubuque for the first time since 2019. It's been a while. We've missed it. It is both the best and the worst conference of the year. The best because it has everything, and the worst because you can only get to about 10% of it. So just a great suite of presentations on everything from energy use and efficiency in municipal and in residential buildings to financing to driving equity, stormwater, resilience, sustainability plans, just kind of the whole gamut of sustainability concerns for businesses, for municipalities. So really excited to explore a lot there and just completely fill my brain to the breaking point.
Phil, I'm going as well. So we should coordinate and make sure we double up the sessions.
Yes,
we don't
absolutely. For sure. Yeah, we'll be in touch this week. We got to talk about if we need to discuss any amendments anyway, but definitely that.
All right, great. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Ben. Okay, I just have one question, Ben. When you put together the agenda, there's an agenda at the beginning. There's another agenda in the packet that says staff update. I'm just kind of wondering why we have two agendas.
Could you repeat that, Ron?
I was wondering why we have two agendas in the packet. There's one at the very beginning, and then there's one later on in the package, like on page 26 of the package, which kind of goes in a little more detail what's on the agenda, except this time sustainability wasn't mentioned as part of the staff update.
So this month I neglected to get my sustainability staff update into Ben in time. So I just didn't get that information to him before he submitted the packet. Normally we have the staff update is used if there's any pertinent information that would be good for you to know about coming into the meeting, that there's not any specific documents or memos or things that have been put into the packet. If they're just little notes that kind of can help to enhance your understanding of things. I think that's been inconsistent. It's definitely something we can look at, but that's why there's that second agenda, is that if there are additional notes for any of the agenda items, that would be where you'd see them.
Yeah, so that's just all part of the whole staff update supporting document. It includes a full agenda, which, right, like Phil just said, kind of.
I mean, is there a reason why we have to have two agendas then? I mean, it's kind of confusing.
We don't have to. That's just the format that I saw. Yeah. So we
could
do
stop,
however you guys like.
We could stop providing the staff update notes. I don't think it would make sense to put the notes we put in the staff update. We would not put in the clean agenda at the beginning. That's got to be just the agenda items. So
well,
if we get rid of the second,
I think Diane mentioned last time you'd like to have those notes. Is that correct? Or
yeah, we asked, several years ago, the staff update started, and that was to provide us with background information. For example, if we have a speaker or there's a large document in there, like Ben included, I won't say it's a large document, but the contract today, but this year we've already had several large documents, and we don't know what's the object of giving it to us. Is it for feedback? Is it just FYI? Do we need to go through and edit it? And so the staff update is supposed to explain what's in the packet, give us a little bit more information about what it is and why, what they're looking for from us. It also includes, if you notice, the timekeepers, and that's not part of the agenda.
So
yes.
one thing that was requested earlier this year, and I don't know that we have gotten into this habit yet, but not reproducing the entire agenda in the staff update, just the items that actually have a note. It would clean it up a little bit. It's a minor thing. I think it's more a question of, do we keep providing that staff update at the end, or would we simply, when we send out the agenda to the RCC, we would just put in the body of the email, there's a really large document for item 4C. Don't feel like you need to read the whole thing.
I think just clean up the staff update and keep it the way it is. That would be my preference.
Yeah, I agree with Diane as well. I mean, I like the way the layout of the staff update is. So,
but yeah, that's the reason the agenda is copied back there. It looks sillier months where there aren't notes added in for the staff update, so it just looks like we did a duplication. But that is the intent.
Okay.
Ben, I don't think I gave you any of that background, so my apologies.
I just went through some old ones. I don't know. Seemed like there were a couple different ways it'd be done. So
yeah, they
seemed to get the point across with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You did a nice job, Ben.
Yeah.
Do what I can.
And I think there might be one other thing for discussion that's making sure the follow-up action items that we do or talk about, making sure those are followed up on and get reported back. So I'm not sure if that's being done. Some things might got missed.
Before we adjourn, I have several things. Are we ready for that?
Yeah.
We didn't discuss the STAR article. Is anybody interested in writing one related to holiday recycling or do's and don'ts?
I'd be interested if they don't have a problem with the same person 2 days in a row or 2 months in a row.
I'm sure the STAR doesn't, and I don't have a problem with that. If you're able to do that, that would be great. I can send you previous holiday articles if you'd like.
Yeah, I can do that.
That would be great. Also, I thought we were going to have Tony as a guest on today's, Tony Hartman as a guest for today to discuss some of the solar stuff since Phil was going to be here. Did I miss that, or was Tony not available?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, then I thought originally we were going to have Tracy, and we suggested pushing Tracy back to November. So is Tracy going to be talking in November?
Well, we will have a water talk, I'm trying to get either Todd or someone else from USGS. So we'll have someone that's, kind of more of an expert in the aquifer area. And then, either Tracy or if she's unable to make it, someone else that could step in and present kind of more of the water system stuff. So it is the plan to have a water presentation for the November meeting.
Good.
Yeah, I do remember the thing about Tony. So I even saw an email from him. And what happened to that?
I honestly don't know. That doesn't even ring a bell to me.
Yeah, and I don't recall that discussion if we had discussed it and I let it slip. Sorry about that. But yeah, I don't remember Tony being lined up for a meeting.
This came up when we were talking about what MG&E pays. I don't remember the term, but what they pay us for solar use, the excess solar use.
When we sell back excess use,
Yeah. This whole thing came up then, and so anyway, it doesn't matter because he's not here. But
is that still an interest for the November meeting to get that lined up?
Yeah, we could talk
because Phil's not going to be here, and that was one of the things that we tried to coordinate. The other question is, after the minutes are done, if we can't see the draft before it's posted, could you just send us out the minutes when they're posted? And then finally on Saturday, do we know who's going where?
I'll get a list sent out so we can kind of get that put in stone here.
Okay.
But it looks like we've got plenty of volunteers. Just figured out who's going to go where. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:56. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you. Have a nice night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.